Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the annual NTX Inno Fire Awards event and the Future of Innovation panel. I'm Kevin Cummings, staff reporter for NTX Inno in the Dallas Business Journal, and I'm so excited that you could all be here today with us. This time last year, we were gathered virtually, and I don't think we could have predicted that we'd be doing it again this year. We can't wait to celebrate in person, but despite our inability to be in the same room together, we knew it was important to bring attention to those who've been driving innovation in North Texas and beyond for the last year. We're excited to be here with you today, and we're thrilled to showcase some of our 2021 honorees. This year's honorees range in size, industry, age, and stage. They're all having their moments in different ways. They're sizzling with new fundings and rising revenues on the heels of entries and exits and pivots, especially during a particularly difficult period. Many things have challenged these ventures and threatened their futures and made growth that much harder. For some of those challenges created opportunities. For others, it was issued a major test that these players have passed. We hope that you enjoy the fire as an opportunity to look back on what these amazing people, organizations, and startups have accomplished over the last year, and a chance to look forward to the projects and endeavors that they're working on for the future. I also want to thank our sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible. They have stuck with us through these difficult times and continue to show their support for the North Texas innovation community. I know they have a few words that they'd like to say to you all, so I'd like to introduce them real quick. First up, we have Diane Mcnulty from the University of Texas at Dallas. Diane, are you with us today? Looks like we might be having some technical difficulties. So we also have from Thomson Reuters, Gabriel Madison. Gabriel, do you happen to be here today with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Loud and clear.
All right. Well, Thomson Reuters is delighted to be a sponsor of NTX Inno and super excited each year about the NTX Inno's Fire Awards. It provides an opportunity for us to see those companies and organizations in the area who have been revolutionizing in various ways. I'm always amazed when I hear about what the organizations have created, and it is particularly impressive to hear what people have been doing to create during these times. Thomson Reuters wants this audience to know that we support entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers. As a company that provides solutions for professionals in legal, tax, accounting, and audit, we understand the need to not only recognize, but encourage innovation. Congrats to all that have been nominated for this award. And of course, a big congrats to the winners. We can't wait to see this event. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for being here and thanks for your support. Next, we have from Accenture, Jorge Corral.
Hello, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jorge Corral, the Office Managing Director for Accenture in Dallas, and we're proud to be a sponsor. Accenture is a global company that focuses on innovation, creating new ways for companies to grow and run their businesses. And we have nearly 2,500 North Texas-based employees. We're proud to be part of the North Texas continued growth, helping expand the innovation landscape, working with incubators, accelerators, startups, academia, and other partners across the region. Today, I'm especially honored to welcome you all to the Inno on Fire Awards to celebrate new ideas and technologies and the people and companies behind them. And you know, the pandemic has changed the way we work and live. The need to innovate, transform, and grow in the digital economy has never been more important. And the entrepreneurs and startups we recognize today have shown agility, resilience, and responsiveness to change. With today's Inno on Fire Awards, we're honoring 25 companies that are applying the power of technology and human ingenuity to harness creativity, break barriers, and drive change for the better. So congratulations to each of our honorees, and we're looking forward to seeing what potential you unlock next.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And again, thanks for your support. Diane, do we have you on now from UT Dallas? Well, we thank you for your support as well. Before we light the fire, a little bit about us. NTX Inno is part of a growing network of sites. We're in currently more than 40 markets across the country and more coming in 2022. We're committed to covering and connecting local technology, startups, growth, and innovation. NTX Inno has been covering the North Texas ecosystem since 2019, and we're doing that through stories, startup and founder profiles, our newsletter, The Beat, events, and more. Check us out at ntxinno.com to see what we're about. And if you're interested in innovation across the country, then stay tuned as we have national startups to watch coverage coming up in 2022. So Before we reveal our Blazer winners, I want to give you a little bit more about fire and why it is that you're all here. In the past couple of years since Inno's official debut, we've worked to showcase the people, companies, and trends that are helping transform North Texas into a burgeoning innovation and startup hub. We're pleased to introduce our 2021 class of fire winners, a celebration of the early stage businesses, enterprises, and innovators who are doing special work to set the ecosystem ablaze. We asked our audience to submit nominations, and from that list of nominations, we pulled together the fire list. Then, using those nominations and our market intelligence gathered from sharing hundreds of startup, tech, and innovation stories, we assembled the list of 25 that we have here today. So, what's an Inno Blazer, you ask? Inno Blazer is a special designation to give the top companies or people trailblazing new paths and blazing the brightest in their category, aka the hottest in their category. The Inno Blazers were selected by an esteemed panel of judges and truly stand out in the innovation economy. Some of our 2021 judges included Martine Martinez of Founder Institute, Hubert Zajicek from Health Wildcatters, Brian Chambers from Capital Factory, Steve Gingrich from UT Dallas, and Simon Mack from SMU. We're dropping a link to the full list of fire winners in the chat now. Take a look at each of these companies and people. They're the 25 leading the way in innovation over the last year, and update those in the NTX area that you want to meet. So without further ado, it's a little weird since I can't hear you, but I would ask for a drum roll. Please allow me to announce the Blazer winner in each category. We'll have a post on NTX Inno later today to share the Blazer announcement. So in the lifestyle and workplace category, the Blazer winner is Gigwage. In the software category, the Blazer winner is O9 Solutions. In the community support category, the Blazer winner is Impact Ventures. In the health, medical, and biotech category is the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Co. And last but not least, in the ag tech and environmental category, the Blazer winner is Skyven Technology. Congrats to all the Blazer winners. I personally look forward to seeing what you guys have in the future for me to write about. Now, let's get to our Fire Showcase and Future of Innovation panel. We have a few of our on Fire winners here to present a little bit about their startup and give us a little bit of insight into the advice they would give to other founders. So please, first up, let me introduce Ed Stevens, founder and CEO of Preciate.
Hey everybody, I'm Ed Stevens and I'm the founder of Preciate. I'm so glad to be here with you today. And what Preciate is a revolutionary platform for virtual meetings and events, and it's geared towards dynamic human experiences and relationship building. So we're on Zoom right now, and this is a nice tool for us to communicate with each other, but we can't network, we can't talk to each other before and after the event, and it's difficult for us to socialize except in person or just by phone. So Preciate invented a platform, and we call it social presence technology, and it allows users to move. So while I'm talking, you'll actually see in the background a little demo of the software. You can see me in my little circle with an outer space theme for the room, and I can go from room to room and from conversation to conversation, and that allows me to network and to build relationships with the people that are important to me at that time. So why is this important? Well, first of all, for events like this, attendees typically say that networking is one of the highest values that they get from conference and events. So it would be great if we could do that. Also, for teams and others in relationship building, context shifting is important. You typically won't take your team out to a bar to work, but you would work in a conference room. You take them out to a bar to socialize, and that signals to everybody to let their hair down and have a good time. And the key thing with Preciate is movement. If there's a room of 100 people, you can decide who you want to talk with. We have over 35 designs, backgrounds. You can customize them. Over 20 music playlists that are built in, icebreakers, the ability to toast and talk to an entire room, and a whole slew of advanced features, including screen sharing, panel presentations, security, photo booth, and more. So really, this is kind of an amazing journey for me as my second time entrepreneur. I had an e-commerce business that I sold to Vista Equity Partners a couple years ago, And these are just a few of the logos of companies that are using Preciate right now to either drive networking, team building, or other types of training and onboarding. So there's lots of uses for it. I'm not going to dive into it in great detail because I promised I would keep this to 3 minutes. But the real question is, what is the best advice I ever received? And I have received a lot of advice and listened to a lot of it throughout my career. And I think that the best advice I ever had when I had my very first startup, which was a company that sold model airplane engines for radio control airplanes. A wise, very wealthy man once told me, Ed, you need to choose a bigger, growing market. And that was really the best advice I ever received. And after that, I decided to start my e-commerce software company, which eventually grew to be acquired by Vista. So that's my best advice, is if you're going to choose something to start, pick a big growing market. It's going to be about the same amount of work and heartburn, but you'll just have a lot more headroom if the market's big. So go check us out at Preciate.com. You can create a free room today. Everybody can use our product for free if you want to. And that's all I got for you, Kevin. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. You obviously didn't pick a growing market. I don't know anyone who uses video conferencing tools these days. But for our audience, if you tuned into Digital Fight Club, you got a little taste of the Preciate platform. Am I right?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. Next up, we have Andrew McKenzie, the CEO of Precision Livestock Technologies. Andrew, you with us today?
I'm here. Can you see me?
I can.
Ah,
Why don't you
awesome.
take it away?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, we're really honored to be selected as an honoree. You know, you spend so much time working in your home office and going seeing customers, and yeah, it's just great to be recognized. I don't have Ed's cool background, so you'll just have to deal with my face. So we started Precision Livestock in 2019, my co-founder and I. And what we are building is a machine vision platform to deliver actionable intelligence to the livestock industry. And we focus on feeding, health, and performance. You know, building this platform requires being able to capture images in places without electricity, in harsh weather environments, storms and low and high temperatures. So we put a lot of effort into engineering that part of the platform. You know, the other part is processing the images, you know, creating algorithms to generate useful data. You know, that's both an art and a science to that, and we made a ton of headway there. And then finally, you have to deliver the data. So those are sort of the three parts of the platform that we've built. We decided when we founded the company to focus on the cattle feeding industry, which is an industry that really all of us interact with and very few of us know anything about. And cattle feeders, there's about 14 million cattle on feed in the US alone at any given time. And most of these operations, 85% of them are pretty large, and they have to be data driven. The problem is they're remote, you know, they're outdoors. They don't have a good way to collect data other than finding skilled people to drive around and understand what's going on. There are fewer and fewer of those people. So you have this need to be data driven to optimize, an inability to find skilled employees to create that data. And the data you do have is just not objective data. So there's a lot of opportunity to optimize around feeding, performance, and health in that industry. And clearly it's a high concentration of value. So we have deployed systems at 5 large, in fact, one of the largest in the country, feedlots, and we're now entering the commercialization phase of our journey. And we spent a lot of time with customers. We don't come from the industry ourselves. I have an engineering background and have started companies in the online space, in the software space. And my co-founder, his last company, which was sold to a pharmaceutical company, used machine vision to monitor lab mice in pharmaceutical trials. And so we spent a ton of time with customers. We've built a great board of advisors and just have a growing team that's tackling these problems. what else? There are other industries, other sectors, other species in livestock that have the same problem. So, next year we'll start branching out into other species. And I should note that Harvest Returns, a fellow honoree, was one of our backers, and encourage folks who are in our space anyway to reach out to them, because they're absolutely great to work with.
Yeah, they are pretty active. Well, I know we probably have a few founders tuning in. So what would your best piece of advice that you have for fellow founders?
Yeah, I thought about this because, I'll often get asked, and, the one thing you can't do enough is talk to customers. I mean, there is no substitute for just getting out of your comfort zone and getting in front of customers. The other thing I'd say is that it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. There are going to be times when you question your sanity and your will to go on. You just have to power through those times, but just know that they're coming. And finally, build a network of people you can talk to, both about your industry and just people who are in your position, sort of similar age stage, trying to build a company. I have a group of people I'm sort of on some people a 1 week cycle, some people a 2 month cycle. And I just have these touch points on the calendars and just, chew the fat with these people. And it's extremely helpful, because you get introduced to other people, you solve problems, it just introduced a new ways of thinking. So just, get out of your own head as much as you can, and, get out in front of customers and talk to people.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And thanks for being here. I know based on the time that I spent out in West Texas, there's probably not a shortage of cattle in the state to keep y'all busy. So.
Yeah, a lot of time in the car.
Thanks again for being here.
Thanks.
All right, so now we've got a list of panelists who are here to talk to us kind of about their companies in the state of innovation in North Texas. They can introduce themselves a lot better than I probably can. So let me just introduce our first panelist real quick. They'll tell you a little bit about who they are and what their company does. First up, I've got Derrick Miles from CourMed.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for the intro, and thanks so much for considering CourMed for one of the awards. Named Derrick Miles, I'm the founder and CEO of CourMed. In one sentence, CourMed utilizes enterprise software to facilitate the innovative concierge delivery of healthcare products and services. So when I say innovative delivery, think crowdsourced delivery, Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, here in the state of Texas, Favor. But what makes us different is we don't deliver people, we don't deliver food, we don't deliver grocery, we deliver healthcare products and services. So when we started the company in 2018, primarily we started with prescriptions, then we moved on to high-end vitamins and supplements, PPE, immunity nutrition drinks. When COVID-19 hit, we actually had some nice partnerships behind the scenes that I'll talk about later. Then we started delivering COVID-19 vaccines, monoclonal antibodies, as well as IV infusion therapy. So that's a little bit about CourMed. Again, thank you so much for the consideration.
Yeah, thank you for being here with us. Now let me kick it over to Clarisa from GigWage. Clarisa, do we have you here?
Hello, mute. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. We're thrilled to be here. I'm Clarisa Lindenmeyer. I'm the Chief of Staff and Chief Brand Officer at GigWage. I'm actually here on behalf of our founder, Craig J. Lewis, who could not be here. He's speaking at an event in NYC. But we're thrilled to have been nominated, and certainly thrilled to have won the award, especially in such great company. I like to say that what GigWage does is actually quite simple, but that our mission is quite big. So GigWage is hyper-focused on paying the 1099 economy, right? That's contractors, freelancers, gig economy workers, independent economy workers, however people identify. If you get paid as a 1099, we help get you your money very fast and very easily. So we are laser focused on serving the employers, right, that pay and use 1099 workers to support their workforce. But our mission really is to empower economic empowerment for all. And we believe that getting people access to pay is essential in doing that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And last but not least, we have Benjamin Vann from Impact Ventures.
Hello, Kevin and everyone joining. Super happy to be here and glad to be nominated and awarded the On Fire Awards this year for community supporters. Again, my name is Benjamin Vann. I'm the founder and CEO of Impact Ventures. We are a 501c3 startup accelerator and integrated capital fund with a mission to empower talented yet under-resourced women and entrepreneurs of color to build generational wealth, specifically through inclusive entrepreneurship and integrated capital. Just a little bit about us historically. We've been around since 2017. We've nearly impacted 3,500 people through networking events, hackathons, workshops, and community summits. More recently, since 2020, our flagship accelerator program has supported over 100 founders to collectively raise 3.6 million in capital and create over 100 jobs in the ecosystem. And so I'll talk a little bit more about our current work and what we're looking at in the future. And so again, I'm honored to be here and super proud to be highlighted and honored for our work here in North Texas.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Well, this is the Fire Award. So, we're talking about people doing big things in the ecosystem. So I'd like to just kind of go around the panel here real quick and kind of hear from you guys. What do you feel has been the biggest accomplishment or biggest milestone that you've reached this year? Derrick, why don't we just start off with you?
Well, we had a couple. So today in the United States, I think there's only 4 companies with $1 trillion market cap, and 3 of them, Microsoft, Google, as well as Amazon, has either put money into CourMed or helped us behind the scenes. So we're really excited about that. And then with the pandemic, we're able to shift and save lives. So again, when I say what makes us different from the other crowdsourced delivery companies, we're not delivering hamburgers or what people want. We're delivering life-saving type solutions like monoclonal antibodies.
Absolutely. Clarisa? That mute button.
I'm trying to make sure I don't have an echo for anyone, and I keep forgetting. We have been busy this last year. I would say that if there's one word that describes the last year, it's been growth. Gig Wage has obviously been around for quite some time and really been laser focused on developing a product that our customers need and that really serves their interest. In this last year, we raised our Series A, have hired our go-to-market team, and have really ramped up our marketing efforts so that we can, scale appropriately. And we're really excited to see all of those results. And then we obviously have some exciting things coming in the future as well.
Awesome. And Benjamin, what about y'all?
Man, I would say probably be consistent with all this group is just surviving the last 18 to 24 months, right? Especially us as a nonprofit, so many things shifted from funding priorities, to supporting entrepreneurs who were hit the most, which we know that, small business owners are the backbones of our economy in terms of employing people and employing communities. And so for us, it was surviving. It was also growth, similar to what Clarisa talked about, really seeing the importance of our mission here in North Texas and supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs that historically have been excluded from the economic opportunities in our region and across the country. And so we recently expanded our programming options. So we actually created a new program track called LEAP. That focused on local entrepreneurs that were scaling at employer firms. And this also created a nice pipeline into our integrated capital fund, which is Texas's first minority-led integrated capital fund, deploying both flexible debt and patient equity to women and BIPOC-led companies. And so we've raised a significant amount of capital over the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And so we're excited to do our first tranche here in Q4 with some great companies that you all might know or may not have heard of just yet that are doing some really cool things in North Texas.
Awesome. Well, I do have some questions about that coming up. So, but you were talking about, kind of challenges and growth at the same time. So what's been kind of the biggest change or pivot you've had to make, or what's your secret sauce to continue going and thriving?
For us specifically, I would say the biggest challenge is continue to navigate this whole virtual setting, right? Our entrepreneurs are facing new challenges every day in terms of how to continue to be talking to their customers. I think it was one of the individuals that you had on earlier that talked about the importance of talking to customers. It's been harder to do that in this digital age where there's so much being thrown at people, from emails to newsletters to trying not to binge watch on Netflix. Like, you're competing with a lot of things out there, right? And so for us, it's just been trying to weather the storm for our current alumni and our portfolio, and helping them address the challenges that they're facing in terms of, you know, the goalposts continuing to move for them in terms of customer acquisition and capital raising. And so, you know, this round, we've been able to help some of our companies significantly raise some rounds. And we think that's exciting to go into the future of what we're doing. And then also, I think just doubling down on our mission as an organization to help people understand that a lot of these inequities existed before COVID-19. And so the idea of really honing our narrative to show that what we're building is a long-term solution. It's not a aid to COVID. It's not a short-term relief. This is a long-term strategy and solution. For example, you know, through our fund, you know, on the debt side, we're not looking at things like credit and collateral. We know those are things that have historically tripped up entrepreneurs of color and women in the past in getting access to loans. That is a long-term strategy, not necessarily a crisis management strategy. And so we want funders, partners, institutions to know that the work we're doing is really a long-term strategy to build what we think the new economy, or what our future economy should look like, and making resources accessible to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Derrick, I know we talked not too long ago. You guys have obviously made a few changes throughout the years, but what would you say has been kind of the biggest pivot or change that y'all have made, or just how have you kind of continued to thrive?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that we've been able to move away from is being a one-trick pony, right? So the opportunity for us to be in the Microsoft for Startups program, Google for Startups, and then working with Amazon behind the scenes, we were able to notice something. We noticed that Amazon started off as a book company. We noticed that Google started off as a search engine, and Microsoft started off as office productivity software. Now, all those companies have $1 trillion market cap, and they much different companies than what they used to be, right? So as we were going through their accelerators, they actually were the ones who helped us to pivot. They said, hey, Derrick, we know you started off as a delivery company, but have you ever thought about delivering vaccines? And we're like, haven't thought about it, but I'm sure we can do it. Have you ever thought about delivering monoclonal antibodies? Haven't thought about it, but I think we can do it. So as an organization, we have pivoted from being just a delivery company and getting paid for just deliveries to being a healthcare solutions company. So we're creating the solutions and the partnerships with physicians and nurses and NPs and pharmacies. Independently, we could not deliver the services today by ourselves, but collectively as a team, we can. So CourMed now gets paid as part of the solution. So some of these high-end solutions have helped us to grow our revenue by a significant amount. And that's the area that we're really focusing on going forward, is being a healthcare solutions company and working as a team to provide our solutions in homes, in corporate offices, and then luxury hotels.
No, it's interesting that you say that was kind of inspired through going through those programs. So I guess let me take it back to you real quick, Benjamin. Sorry? I was just going to ask, when a company is coming through y'all's program, I asked the other founders who are on here what their best advice was. What is the advice you give to founders walking through your doors?
I would say the biggest thing is being humble enough to want to search and learn what you don't know. We do a great job of giving entrepreneurs a 30,000-foot view of their company. And through that, they get a really good understanding of where they are. Sometimes it's very humbling, because sometimes startup founders like to think that they have this hockey stick, projections in year 1 and year 2. And after going through some assessments and meeting with some mentors and some folks who've been there, done that, you see those projections kind of become a little bit more realistic. And so I would say the biggest thing is being coachable and being flexible in a way that you're always learning. Because if you walk through this journey thinking that you know everything, your competitor will pass you, you lose customers. It's a recipe for a disaster as a founder by thinking that you're the smartest person in the room. And so what I found the successful trait of the founders that we incubate and we feel like have success after our program, they all have the same qualities of being coachable, of being forever learners, being curious, being creative, and being flexible in a space where things are always changing. We've had several pivots, even closures sometimes, and sometimes that's a good thing because you could be spending resources that you might need to save in other instances and saving you a lot of money. And so, I would say those are some of the things that we've been really encouraging entrepreneurs to stay and hold true to.
Interesting. Well, I didn't want to skip over you here, Clarisa. Would you like to share what's been kind of y'all's biggest change, pivot, or secret sauce to continue growing?
I will say that I don't think that there's really one in the last year. We were a remote first company before COVID, and we served a very modern and remote on-demand workforce, right? So just like Derrick said, we actually saw a lot of our customers turn into delivery companies overnight, right? And so really meeting the needs of the changing economy, right? Since we move money and give people access to their pay, it's really just meeting the market and our customers where they were. And I think that's something that every startup and certainly tech company have to do on the regular. On the flip side of that, through growth, right? You have growing pains, right? You're hiring more, you're putting more capital to work, you're refining your ideal customer profile, you're refining go-to-market strategy and messaging. And those things are hard. When done well, they look easy, but there's real work, right? And that goes into that, and bringing on a team, defining culture, setting goals, measuring, really building a business. So all of them are necessary and they're fun, but they're challenging along the way. So I think I attribute most of our challenges. It's a good challenge because it's been in the result to growth, but that it's just been the everyday, the parts of growing the business.
Well, you really could not have set me up more perfectly for my next question, because I was going to say, I talked to Craig, not too long ago about the growth hiring in the company. So as you guys are remote, how do you keep a company culture, and what are you looking for, in a hire for a fast growth startup?
Yeah, that is something that we are dialed in on and we talk about all the time because we have grown so significantly in the last year. And while we have a great contingency in Dallas, we have employees, all over the country and some even international. And so I think first and foremost is you developing communication frameworks before you actually need them. And I don't mean to suggest that you need process, right, over everything, but just to be thoughtful about the fact that as you grow, vision, mission, goals, and startups change really quickly. Sometimes employees need insight and context to why we're headed where we're headed or why a decision was made. So you cannot over communicate in a remote workplace, right? We use Slack. We literally say it is our office, right? We encourage people to show up and be visible and participate. We encourage public discourse, problem solving, asking. There is no bad question at Gig Wage. We want everyone to ask all the questions and to be really, really dialed into learning. When you talk about hiring and the things that we look for, I would say, a maniacal sense of curiosity, right? Pushing to understand the customer, understand the market, understand our product. How do we continue to solve problems? So you have to be curious, right? To dig into discovery and then solve for it. And then I think as we've grown, we've really identified that pace and a sense of urgency is essential to what we need to accomplish at Gig Wage. And that isn't meant to represent working 19-hour days, 7 days a week, right? We're not looking for people to not have lives, but the sense of urgency that you take on problems and bring impact is just, I think at the stage we are, just, there's nothing more important.
And how do you see that in a person?
It's hard. It's completely hard, because I mean, we've all done it. Hiring, there's nothing harder than hiring, right? And it doesn't matter if you've interviewed a million times. I was a recruiter in my former life. I mean, you still can make hires that aren't perfect fits. I think one of the things, and everybody has a different style and a different process, and we like our candidates to meet different people within the organization so that there is a different lens, right? Different worldview, different set of questions, and certainly a different set of opinions about potential candidates. But I think for me, I'm just very matter of fact and straight up with the people that we're talking with. And we want it to be a good fit. It's not a two-way street. I mean, it is a two-way street, right? We have to give an honest depiction of where we are as a company. Here are our challenges. Here is where we're awesome. Here's exactly what you're getting into. And I ask for the same kind of transparency back, right? And I think a lot of times if you're honest with people about, hey, we don't have it all figured out, or we are fast-paced and chaotic at times, how do you thrive in those environments, right? And you ask for them to, you want happiness for them, right? And you hope that they give you kind of that honest feedback as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Derrick, Benjamin, I know y'all have been growing as well. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on everything Clarisa said. I mean, she was spot on. Additionally to that, we're in that space right now. So when we started off, we were a B2B company, primarily working with McKenzie, AmerisourceBergen, and Cardinal Health because they're the largest parent company to community pharmacies. But when we made the pivot, we started working directly with consumers, right? So we did have to start changing our messaging so that these moms who have children who are making all the healthcare decisions, how do you craft a message that encourages them to get concierge service, right? And then from a leadership perspective, what I really focused on is hiring A players to fill the positions that work with me, because I believe the competitive advantage in any company is who has the most A players is going to win. And the last thing that we're doing as far as the employees that work with us, we want to make sure that they understand that we're in the service business. We're serving others at the end of the day. So each and every SMS text message that goes out to our customers has a message at the bottom says, be encouraged. One thing that we understand is everyone has something in their life where they need a word of encouragement. Nobody's on 100. Everybody has something that they're concerned about. So we want to send a message to thousands of people, and we do it on a daily basis to give them a little bit of encouragement, because we're in the serving business. So we want to make sure that we attract individuals, not who just want to make money, but individuals who want to make a difference. So what we found out is our best drivers outside of our leaders are stay-at-home moms, believe it or not. They may have time between 9 and 3. They show that they care. Veterans, instead of watching television, they have shown to be very dependable. And then finally, after stay-at-home moms, veterans, individuals who are 50 and older, they have made up our best drivers. So it's A players, it's individuals who have that compassionate heart and know that they are actually making a difference when they go out and make deliveries on behalf of CourMed.
Absolutely. Benjamin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, they said it all. I mean, I think what resonated for me in this growth stage for us was, like Derrick said, hiring A players, but then also prioritizing and lifting up, equity and diversity in doing so. I say that because Impact Ventures is a majority women-led firm. We are a majority Black women-led board. And we took that in mind in terms of the development of what perspectives do we want to consider as we're developing solutions for people, right? And so this goes back to talking to your customers, right? And even though we're Accelerator, we're a fund, our customers, and our clients are entrepreneurs, right? And so we're getting feedback from them, understanding what they want, what their perspectives are, and then understanding that because we have a majority diverse, we have an Asian woman, Black woman, Caucasian woman, Black male on our leadership team. When we have our meetings and deliberation around how we're choosing investments or how we're choosing accelerator participants, all those diverse perspectives come into play. We have corporate experience, we have startup experience, we have nonprofit experience, right? And so I tried to prioritize equity and inclusion as we looked at our growth trajectory and how does that show up, not just on a check the box level from did we invest in a Black founder or a woman-led company, but also we've looked at deeper to say how do we establish impact covenants in our term sheets that require our founders to actually take a founder's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So how are they looking at the wage discrepancies between women and men on their leadership team? How are they looking about race and ethnicity through their board, who's on their cap table, who their vendors are? And we actually report on all that from an impact measurement standpoint with every investment that we make, which is a little bit different than most firms that might not care about diversity, equity, or even if you're paying your employees a livable wage. Those are things that we track and that we prioritize with each investment that we make. And so I think just lifting up and prioritize that diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just from a check the box perspective, but how can you go 2 or 3 levels deeper and say, how can our businesses also be vehicles for change?
Yeah, I mean, I know that was important to y'all when you were creating the Dallas Inclusive Capital Fund. So I guess what are some of the things that you look for? And you kind of touched on it, but how did you build, those principles into the fund itself?
I will tell you, it was a long journey. We probably started this back in 2017, 2016 was when the idea of this kind of came about. It's actually a group of philanthropists and impact investors from across Dallas that went on this learning journey across the country to see, how is innovative financing being structured in an asset class of women and minorities that's considered a risk, right? When you walk into a bank or when you walk into an investor, you're 100% risk, right? Until you open your mouth. And it is your job as a founder to de-risk yourself through a number of ways. That's building trust, that's showing traction, that's doing what you say you're gonna do. There's a number of ways to build trust or to establish, worthiness. However, what we found is that in that you can't necessarily gauge someone's trajectory or, upside by a credit score or, looking at a number or a credit score or looking at, what school or background they came from, right? Because, there's this pattern matching around. If you come from Ivy League, then, you have a higher rate of being successful as a tech founder, all these things, right? So all those things were considered into like what strategy we wanted to build. And we also knew that what founders really need right now, and I'm not anti-VC or anything like that, but understanding what are the strings that are attached when you accept VC dollars, those are very, they can be a very pressure situation that most Black and brown founders that are already experiencing a level of, I would say, uphill battle that they're chasing, right? They're already up against, a mountain. And so attaching VC money that already has certain fundamental triggers, right? In terms of time sensitivity, in terms of return, in terms of representation, investors have a lot of demands that all is being put on founders. And we said, what is a more founder-friendly solution that actually allows founders to build organically? And what we found is that what is really needed in the ecosystem right now is risk capital, right? And so instead of going out and going to limited partners and LPs and those traditional VC investors, right, that are expecting a certain level of returns, we said, what it would look like, what is philanthropy's role, right, in closing this racial and gender wealth gap through entrepreneurship? How can philanthropy be a solution for risk capital to provide that equity capital that entrepreneurs of colors so much need, right? The debt capital that can be friendly and actually is variable based on if they do, well or if they don't do well, right? And so leveraging my background, in philanthropy, in finance, we really started to look across the country at these major foundations, national foundations that were doing impact investing to say, okay, if they're prioritizing impact returns, right, over financial returns, meaning inclusive ownership, like how do we increase ownership? How do we increase livable wage jobs? How do we increase the wealth of women and Black and brown founders? How do we create a product that actually is more family friendly to them, right? And so through that process, we were accepted into a program called the Boston Impact Initiative. It's a national cohort that is taking into account 12 different major cities across the US that are all launching these integrated, capital funds where they're leveraging community capital, meaning like, everyday investors like you and I, as well as philanthropists and philanthropy and foundation capital, to then be able to deploy that capital in any way that meets the entrepreneur's needs. You all will probably see in the ecosystem right now, there's a spectrum of, either you go after venture capital or you go to get an SBA loan. And no one ever explores what are the products and structures that are in between those spectrums, like demand dividends, like revenue-based financing, like purchase order financing, like accounts receivable financing, royalty financing, convertible, notes, safes, all these other flexible products that are more friendly to entrepreneurs. And those are the things that we want to structure with our founders so that they can grow organically and also get to a place where they can handle the pressures and demands of VC if that's the type of business they choose to build. So it's been a long process. We're still in the development, phases of a lot of the impact reporting and measurements and what do we really want to track. But it's been I would say, exciting process for me to develop this alongside the entrepreneurs and really ask them, what are the things that you need and you see, and what does that mean to you? What does that look like? How can we design it in a way that benefits you as you do better and doesn't penalize you when you have a COVID, for example? And so those are some of the things that we've taken into account.
Yeah, well, Derrick, I saw you nodding a lot there, and last time we talked about smart money. So
Smart money. Yeah, I do want to piggyback on what Benjamin said, because very early, we're lucky because I think only 1% of startups actually get access to VC money. So we did get a term sheet for $5 million several months ago, but we ended up turning it down. I mean, just like Benjamin said, we were able to send it over to our attorney, who is his fraternity brother, and with just so many gotcha clauses in there. And as a board, we decided we don't want that. We'd rather get smart money. So to us, Microsoft is smart money. Not only is it interest-free debt, but they actually help us to grow. So in the Microsoft community, I don't know if people saw the press release, but CourMed is the company of choice for any corporation that uses Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, to have CourMed come and deliver healthcare products and services on site. So that gives us a heck of a moat. That gives us a heck of an opportunity to grow nationwide, but also worldwide. That's smart money to us. And we're also talking to a family office. I can't name the name right now, but a family office to us is also smarter money. They're more patient and they're willing to get their hands dirty. They're making introductions. This company that gave us the $5 million term sheet, we were talking to them for several months. They never introduced us to anyone. So we didn't think that was smart money. So thank you so much for Benjamin for mentioning that. I wish more entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs, had an opportunity to really evaluate the smart money option versus going VC. Now, we're very honored to be in the 1% to get that term sheet, but we decided to turn it down.
Yeah, well, Clarisa, I know you mentioned earlier you guys have been fairly successful with raising money. I'm not sure about the timeline of when you came on with the company, but can you talk a little bit about how you guys were successful doing that, especially, as we were talking about with things being remote and all that?
Yeah, I want to talk about it from a really macro level, specifically because I didn't raise the funds. Our CEO, Craig Lewis, did. And I got the benefit of, walking alongside the company, both as a friend and, just a fellow member of the community. And then GigWage was a client of mine in my consulting business. And so I've seen the trajectory and path. And no matter when you raise money, raising money is not easy. Finding the right investor, whether it's friends and family, the kinds of people that want to galvanize around what you're doing, all along the way is very, very important. Everything that everyone else has said is true. And, to tie it into this ecosystem, our innovation ecosystem will actually be at its most productive and impactful and healthiest when the investor community really doubles down on the fact that what's best for the founders and the growth of the company is really the growth of the ecosystem, right? And And you do see that mentality more in other regions, right? And so I won't go on a sidebar, but back to gig wage. So whether it's seed capital or we were, had the benefit of raising our series, you have to find a strategy that makes sense for you. So, Benjamin was talking a lot about that. For gig wage in this last round, finding a corporate dev partner in Green Dot Bank to lead our round was absolutely the best way for us because of all the different opportunities around partnership, their position in the space as a publicly traded neobank. And obviously that doesn't work for everyone, but finding, again, the partner or investor, and it doesn't have to be, right, traditional. You can think outside of the box and structure these deals differently based on what the market is doing, based on obviously appetite, right, for the product and what you're selling, because that's what it is when you're raising capital. I encourage everyone to think outside the box. And if you're in the DFW region in particular, corporate investment, right? Corporate debt should be, I think, much more a part of our ecosystem because we have so many large institutions here that are interested in startup driven innovation.
Yeah, well, you were talking about, the importance of having an investor that also kind of works for you. Can you talk a little bit more about why Green Dot was important for y'all's growth and trajectory?
Yeah, I think truly the story of how Craig and Green Dot got connected is very unique. And the short of it is that really during the summer of the kind of the catalyzation around Black Lives Matter, COVID, all of it, he's a consummate researcher and he was, I think, really looking for the right partner. And he reached out to Dan Henry, their CEO, and on LinkedIn. And they struck up a relationship, and Dan was extraordinarily motivated by the story and, right, the gig economy space. But the customers that Green Dot works with are Apple and Walmart, and they're not laser focused on the gig economy, but as a bank, they're very aware of how important this sector is. And so the macro version of it is that it was just a mutually beneficial relationship, right? Where both organizations could really bring something to one another. And we have some amazing things and different kinds of products coming down the pipe. But I think finding like-minded people, right? Even that are CEOs of publicly traded companies is really the differentiating factor.
Yeah, and just a minute ago, you were talking about, some of the areas of improvement for the DFW ecosystem. So as a whole, and I'd like to ask everyone this question, but we'll start with you. As a whole, what do you see as DFW's strengths in terms of the startup ecosystem, and where would you like to see it improve?
Oh gosh, I mean, the strengths are that there's enormous amounts of capital, right? There is so many wealthy individuals. There's so many family offices. There's so many corporations. And people ask me all the time, they're like, how do you like Dallas? I'm like, I love Dallas. I was born in, Rockwall. I'm born and raised really as a Texan, and I've never moved far. Life is pretty easy in our Metroplex. And I certainly don't say that lightly for people that don't have it as easy. My point is, if you want to raise money, build a business, it's a conducive, ecosystem for that. However, right, Dallas, and not the only city that has challenges, though, has a long way to go on having a thriving and healthy startup ecosystem. I mean, in simple, most people would tell you we need more people to write checks of a certain size. Obviously, we need more investment in underrepresented, whether it's women or people of color. Like we all know the statistics about venture capital and investment in general, but Dallas doesn't, it looks the same, right? So we have a lot of work to do in that area. And then just from a community member, I desire for it to be more part of the DNA of the larger business community, right? I say this in the sense of wanting our community to get better, is that it still sometimes feels like an old school, commercial real estate, banking, not that there's anything wrong with that, but when you go into these other ecosystems and, everybody can't wait to find the next big startup, and they care about equity more than a big salary, right? They're They're looking for this next deal. And that goes for talent and for investors. This sense of abundance, right? It's not about desperation to raise capital. It's kind of like, hey, who's going to be lucky enough to get in this deal, right? And so that kind of cultural shift happens over time, and you have to have, right, all the entities on board to make that happen. You have to have academia pumping out amazing talent. You have to have, obviously, the support of the corporations, the support of the media to tell the stories, right? Big and small. And that's not, we've gone up and down with media support around the innovation ecosystem as well. And then, of course, founders, right? Founders and investors, again, you know, those last variables to make it all work.
Yeah, well, we have another founder and investor over here. So Derrick, Benjamin, but I'd be curious to hear y'all's input.
I'm going to jump in before Benjamin. I'm going to steal some of your thunder because I know that you and the young lady who runs Canaries, I think you guys wrote an op-ed about especially minority founders who are over mentored and underfunded. Mandy. So you guys were talking about that, and that is so true. So for us, you know, I'm majority of money is coming out of Seattle, Washington. So the first tranche came in, but I've had a conversation with the Microsoft CFO maybe a month ago. They're coming in a much bigger way. Kevin, I was telling you about how the state of Florida is really recruiting CourMed, and they really lead from a concierge healthcare standpoint. Mandy's money, I think, came out of Washington, D.C. Who else is out there that all their monies came outside of DFW? Not one of us raised major money. Craig, gig wage. Where is Green Dot, Clarisa? What city is?
Funny, it was California based, but they've since then moved the headquarters to Austin, but they're completely remote now. But no, there's been much of our money has been completely outside of this. Region.
Yeah, so for us, it's been, you know, Seattle, Washington, Florida, Chicago, Illinois, very little, just friends and family out of DFW. So I would love to see DFW write more checks to founders who are of color than providing mentoring. Sorry to steal your thunder, Benjamin, but I knew you were going to say that.
From what I'm gathering, Benjamin, you might need to get a few pens and some checks out.
I'm already taking notes, man. But no, this is stuff that we've known about the ecosystem, and the challenges are, some of it's a human challenge, and some of it's infrastructure, right? Like Dallas in our region, like geographically, we're very spread out. We're very isolated. If I live in Frisco, I don't need to come downtown Dallas to Capital Factory. That's just the point blank. I have all the resources, investors, people I know. I don't need to take a trip, right? And so if that's the ecosystem that we're living in, we need to find more creative and meaningful ways, not just gathering entrepreneurs for drinks, but like what are we actually trying to do? Like, what's the goal? Are we meeting to, you know, just to meet and to have drinks and socialize? Or is this an opportunity to get in front of that key investor? Like how are we strategically making these connections and these, I call them collisions, between companies, founders, and making sure there's an alignment? Like, don't do a networking event where you got pre-seed companies and you got Series A investors, and then you got Series A investors coming to the event. Like, all these companies, we could fill their whole round, right? They're just too small, right? And then you got pre-seed investors disappointed, or you got pre-seed founders disappointed because they're like, well, these investors don't want to invest in our company. But there's just a misalignment in resources and structuring what, like, who's benefit to who. And I think so there's one point to be made around what Chris was saying around the community side, like making more strategic connections and making it less around the clout and the pomp and circumstance, but more about the impact, right? So I would love to see, like, how many introductions were made out of this event. Not just did we have the event, was it well attended, but like what happened? Like how many investor connections happened? Like someone follow up, you know, how many customers, you know, did we introduce to you, et cetera. I'll also say on the investor activity side, so I've just joined the Venture Dallas steering committee this year, and we're working on some big initiatives now to integrate more investor activity. Obviously, if more money and more investor activity occurs, you'll get more startups and more founders, you know, interested, right? When you talking about capital, people will show up, right? And so we're working from a regional standpoint, not just the Dallas-Fort Worth region, but more like Southeast, to say, how can we get more investors outside of the North Texas interested in North Texas, so that the CourMeds and the gig wages and the Zerchus and, you know, all these companies don't have to go to either coast to get capital. You know, we're investing in founders at 100K to 250K. I've met with so many founders that literally we're late to their deals because they're like, I wish we would have known about you before, you know, we had to go left or right or east or west, right, to get capital and make commitments. And so I think we're in a stage right now where I think a lot of folks are paying attention more. I think the media understands their role of why that storytelling piece is so critical. I mean, Kevin, you've only been in the ecosystem for what, 2, maybe 3 years now?
That's
I want to say, yeah. But I remember when you first came, you did a series of meeting people, understanding the ecosystem, and you started putting out those stories. And guess what? People are reaching out. Oh, I saw you guys on North Texas Inno. I saw, you know, I'm getting corporations reaching out, want to support our work because they saw an article on your platform, right? So that's the power of community and everybody owning their role in the space and really growing together, right? And so I specifically want to see more strategic connections and collisions that, you know, I'm a believer in niching. I just feel like there's a power in niche, right? And so I would love to see more sector specific events, right? Like, hey, if you're in the ed tech space, or hey, who are all the ed tech investors? Hey, who are all the health tech investors? Like, I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of just general, hey, startups and founders come, but you're coming with no expectation or understanding of like, what's the goal? What's the impact, right? And so I'm just the person that's always about like, what are we here for? What are we truly doing? Or are we just doing it to do it? But again, with all of the challenges, you know, like both of them said, there's extreme opportunity here. The fact is that we don't want to end up in a situation where everyone else recognizes our power before we do. I say that because there are a lot of firms moving their satellite offices here, establishing accelerator programs, establishing, you know, funds, et cetera. And then those deals end up going out even more efficiently and regularly because we didn't see the value that was already here ourselves. So that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Well, I just actually looked at the time. I did not realize this had gone by so quickly, but I asked our presenters earlier to leave us with their parting words of advice. So I'd be interested to hear from y'all. What parting words of advice do you have for our audience? Ben, since we're on you, why don't you take us away here? Or we can come back.
In regards to what? The advice specifically in regards to?
For startup?
What I guess I would ask, what do you have your eyes on, and what has been the thing that has helped you? Obviously, startup, the ecosystem, it's not an easy world to be in. So what has kind of kept you pushing forward, or what do you kind of have your eyes on? What goal kind of motivates you and keeps you going?
I would more so want to send a message to those that are tuning in, is to have more a spirit of, there's this word that a friend of mine, I don't know if he made it up or who coined it, but it's called co-opetition. And I think sometimes in the startup community, there's this, like Clarisa said, this spirit of desperation and scarcity mindset. And I would want folks to walk away from this conversation from a community standpoint saying, like, how can I flip my mindset to be more abundant and more cooperative versus competition? Because at the end of the day, like, investing in VC is a herd industry. It's a herd mentality. Very few firms lead investing. And so we rely on each other to fill rounds, right? And so without those connections, without that spirit of collaboration and cooperation, I think cooperation is going to breed more innovation. It's going to breed more deals. It's going to breed more success stories in our ecosystem. So I would say just looking at our ecosystem as like, man, look at the opportunity we have, the resources we have, and the great people we have to work with across the table. And so that's what I'm leading into, closing this year out and going into the next year, saying, how many organizations can I work with? Like, what's my number? Is it 50? Is it 100? Who can I collaborate with? So.
Absolutely. Derrick, would you like to jump in here?
Yes, a couple of things that I would like to mention, and I always start with your board of directors. I was fortunate enough to have a billionaire out of Australia mentor me early on in my career, and he says, Derrick, whenever you start a company, you're gonna have ups and downs. And if you have the right board of directors, they'll put money in your company during those downturns. So CourMed is no different than any other startup. We had several downturns, and it was our board of directors who put the resources into the company to keep us where we are today. We're not in that position today because we had the right board of directors. The last thing I want to mention is the importance of partnerships. I alluded to it before. Microsoft, the way that they built their corporation is through partnerships. And that's what we're doing within CourMed. We're expanding our partnership with builders in Florida. There's builders who are putting telemedicine into brand new homes in Florida. CourMed's partnering with them to bring on the delivery of products and as well as healthcare services. We're in early conversations with professional sports teams so that those owners, when they go to, say, for instance, the Super Bowl, the NBA All-Star game, they'll have access to concierge healthcare services while they're away from home. So the right board of directors and partnerships is what I would like to recommend, and that's my parting words.
Awesome, thank you. And last but not least, Clarisa.
Yeah, I think I want to part by kind of speaking directly to a desire and both a hope I have around seeing more women in the startup ecosystem and technology space in general. I talk about this all the time, but this concept of designing your life. And I think you're going to start to see this. COVID has really just exacerbated this awareness that people can be productive working from home and working from the beach, and that we should be empowered to get our jobs done, right, and meet the goals that are expected by our employers, but do it in a way that suits our life. And different organizations approach this differently, but this is a sense of freedom that the tech ecosystem awarded to me, right, as a mother of three, where my family is always going to be the priority, but I love my job, right? And I wouldn't be as great of a mom without my job. And so I hope that more women understand that working for tech companies, working for progressive companies, gives you so much freedom, right, to do all the things that matter to you versus choosing. And so I think, we often can't do what we can't see. So I do hope to have more female peers in this ecosystem so that we can encourage more people to join us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys all for being here. And thanks for everyone who tuned in today. Congrats to all our fire honorees and especially the Blazer winners. You can learn more about us and them at ntxinno.com. Also, one more thing, one of the reasons we've been ramping up expansion lately is because we've learned that the more markets we're in, the better we can serve our local communities. Inno now covers local innovators in more than 40 markets across the country. And beyond telling great stories, we are in the business of making connections. So please reach out to us if there's anyone local or in one of our other markets that you'd like to meet or learn more about, and we'll do our best to make that connection. And like any growth company, we rely on user feedback to get better. So if there's anything you want to see more of or less of, please let us know. Lastly, a big thank you to our amazing event sponsors, Accenture, UTD, and Thomson Reuters. Check them out and all the ways that they are supporting the local community. And last, thank everyone for being here. Y'all have a great rest of the day.